Hi, TestPro folk. Welcome to our first episode with myself, Tracey Ormrod, and Tracey Cole. Welcome, Tracey.
Thanks so much. The two Tracys.
Yes, I think it's fab. One with an E and one without. So, Tracey, just tell us a little bit about yourself, just for those folk that haven't heard of you.
Okay, so I'm a master trainer of NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, and I'm a trainer of hypnosis, and I coach equestrians in mindset and mental performance.
Fabulous. It's such an interesting area, I think. And we're learning so much more about it all the time, aren't we?
Oh, definitely.
So, today we're going to talk a little bit about some test learning tips. And the first thing I thought we'd start off with is obviously, is the environment and your sort of mental state really important for actually physically trying to learn? And could you give us some insights on that?
Yeah. Oh, it's crucial. It's crucial, and people will know that when they've tried to cram learn a test, that it's really difficult. And there's probably one little movement that you always forget, or you get to a certain point and you think, oh, a bit hazy on this last bit. So if you're trying to cram learn a test for whatever reason, you put in pressure on yourself, you're putting pressure on your nervous system, you're getting a little bit stressed. And all of those things just dampen down our reasoning, our thinking, because a lot of the tests you mirror yourself, don't you? Whatever you do on the right brain, at some point you do on the left brain. But being able to see those patterns just goes out of the window. So it's really vital that if we want to really learn it, so that we just know it and we don't have to think about it, it's just second nature,
Hmm.
then when we're actually off the horse learning it, that we are in a really relaxed state.
Okay.
And we're not thinking, I've got to learn this now and I've got to be good and I've got to know it all. Doing it in plenty of time, learning it with ease. And also, I know we're going to talk about in a few sessions' time, we're going to talk about how to do that, but having that relaxed state is really vital. And one of the ways that NLP tells us that we can do that is to be in what's called the learning state in
Okay.
NLP. And the
Which,
learning state,
so sorry to interrupt. So this is an interesting area because I haven't particularly thought about what the learning state is, and obviously I try and make sure that I don't have the telly on, and I don't
yeah,
have a long to-do list, in the back
yeah,
of my mind. I try and do that when I learn a test, but I didn't know there's a sort of state of mind slash presence that one should sort of be thinking about. So, yeah, definitely tell us more.
okay. So this is a great state because it keeps you calm, but at the same time, it's opening up your subconscious or unconscious mind, which is where you want the information to go in if you're going to remember it properly. If you're cram learning, then it goes into a different part of the brain. But
Okay.
if you really want to learn it and know it in plenty of time and nice and easy, then you want to engage your unconscious mind. And this helps you to do that. So you're calm and you're in the right part of the mind as well. So the setup is that you look slightly above eye level.
Hmm.
So instead of tipping your head back, you actually have your eyes a little bit upwards, and it's all done very comfortably. And you blink normally and so on, and you focus on one spot.
Okay.
And that just starts to get the unconscious a little bit engaged. It sort of piques its interest a little bit. And then you start to widen your vision wider and wider and wider. Now, when we think of peripheral vision, because we're always on phones and devices, our vision is now so honed in and so focused. What we want is the absolute opposite. So people think, oh, it's about that wide, my peripheral vision. It's kind of
Hmm.
like 30 centimeters. No, 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 no. It's not. It's like
Okay.
almost 180 in a human. I know it's not quite like the horse, but it's like 180. So when we're in that kind of vision, now that does take a little bit of practice to get into, and you can, just kind of, I'll go on the side so you can see
Yes.
me. You can just kind of wiggle your fingers and just notice that movement. That's pretty difficult at 180 degrees, but it is possible. It's aspirational. But when you get into that kind of vision, you can't hold a negative thought or negative emotion, which is going to block your learning.
Okay.
And you've got that better connection with that unconscious part of your mind.
That's absolutely fascinating because I never would have made that connection, if you like, with vision and negative thought patterns.
Yeah, it's a little quirk of our nervous system, it's our your sympathetic nervous system when you're all kind of stressed, that's when
Yeah.
you're focused. And people probably know, they either look at the horse's mane or they look at the horse's ears when they're in that highly stressed state. And you are able to look a little bit wider when you're more relaxed. But if you want to be really, really relaxed, go really, really wide.
Okay.
Um,
So is it something that people need to practice maybe first of all? So here I am thinking ahead. Maybe I've got the regionals or the nationals coming up as a big competition, and I'm thinking, right, I need to learn my test so it's really in my head. So, should I then be practicing how to get into this state of relaxation before I even think of learning the actual physical test itself?
Yeah, that would be really good just around the house. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
just go for a walk, or if you're
Yeah.
leading your horse, which is quite nice because it puts you into a very relaxed state anyway. But yeah, it's a lovely state to be in, but it does require practice because it's so
Okay.
different from what we're normally doing. But then you'll be going in and out of it. So you'll be reading your test sheets and
Okay.
looking at what you need to do, and then going into peripheral vision, and then read a little bit, go into peripheral vision, and so on. So you'll be in and out, in and out. So it's that
Okay.
change that we need to make sure we're doing.
Okay. So, if I'm using TestPro, another thought, obviously you can read, but for those people, and we're going to come on and talk about this at another point, that are maybe more audio focused or auditory focused, could they then sort of listen to a movement or two and then pause it, be within the state, then listen to the next few? So would it work not just for reading, but for auditory as well? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. They can well, it depends on the person. Some auditory people can remember long lists really well, and
Okay.
some not so well, or the length of the list they can remember changes. But yeah, they could either stay in peripheral vision whilst they're listening, and then
Mhm.
as you say, pause it, have a little think about it, and then the next section. Or they may even be able to go almost all the way through the test, depending
Oh,
on the
okay.
way their mind works. But definitely in peripheral vision whilst they're listening. Yeah.
Okay. So, just to recap on what to do, because I'm trying to remember this now. This is quite interesting area for me. Is to obviously sit down on your comfy chair or your favorite place, or to start with, look slightly up, find a point, then expand the vision out.
Yeah.
Think of that. When you go to the eye test and everything, and they're saying,
Yeah.
can you see out the corner of your eye here? Go into that sort of state, and you're just then relaxing the mind, then go to your test, listen, read, however you learn best. Then again, think of the peripheral vision again, so you're going in and out.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want the double whammy,
Hmm.
I don't suggest you you do this if you've got a competition imminent, but it might be something for a future competition. You could do your physical riding test in that state as well, because it recalls that that
Mm.
calm state. You're quite aware of 3D as well. I know you haven't got the fine definition, but most people, they don't need that fine definition. If you're going to be staring at a marker, you're not going to do very
Mhm.
well anyway. But it gives you that 3D spatial awareness as well.
Okay. Yeah, I shall have to try that on horse, obviously in a non-competitive environment,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to try it.
Definitely.
But that's really cool. So, is there anything else in that just preparation for learning that we ought to be considering? Sorry.
Only that take your time, the obvious things, and don't rush. Find a moment when you do have time, or if you wanted to learn just a chunk of it because you've
Mhm.
only got 5 minutes. Because anything that pressurizes us is going to stop the learning and make us feel even more frustrated.
Yeah, fabulous. Well, thank you for that. I think that is a useful insight to start our journey into and learn our tests in a more positive and relaxed way.